Hey, how's it going? It's your challenger coach, Adam Moriarty Isles, here to bring you the 10.1 High-ELO tier list. You may have noticed that my voice changed on the last tier list video because oddly enough, when I get sick, I gain a British accent and become a subpar ADC main. I'm joking, please don't fire me. But thankfully, now I'm back to normal, so let's get right back into the tier list. For the top lane, our S tier roster are gonna be Darius, Kled, Ornn, Camille, and Riven. This patch, we don't have too many changes as the season settles in top lane, but we did add Mantheon to B tier, moved Akali up to A tier, and dropped Mordekaiser down from S tier to A tier due to his nerfs. Akali, since her release, has been a favorite for High-ELO players to show off her incredibly overloaded kit. I mean, their incredible mechanics. Since then, she's received a lot of nerfs, then some buffs for some reason, then Riot learned that that was a mistake. Then she got nerfed a bunch after that, netting her an awful overall win rate when combined with her difficulty for a 46% win rate even in Diamond Plus. Despite that, she's still a 1v9 machine, receiving an almost permaban status in competitive play during the offseason. Thanks to her Conqueror setup and presence of mind, she's able to easily spam Q until her opponent dies, as she will out-sustain even champions like Aatrox when you add in her Gunblade. Which, I'm gonna add, it might be the single biggest item power spike a champion in League of Legends has, period. When Akali gets that Gunblade, she's going to solo kill you pretty easily. You're gonna want to pick up Akali if you main Joker in Smash Ultimate. You're gonna feel right at home having the character just carry for you while looking cool and making fancy outplays like a typical assassin player would. Next up, another champion I'd recommend picking up is Camille, because not only has she been in S tier for most of the preseason, but post buffs on Omnistone, many top players in both China and Korea have been testing it out on her. Now, I'm not going to outright say this setup is better than her usual Conqueror or Grass setup, but it is a growing trend among Camille players, including Kuve, who is known to be pretty strong on her, or EUS Solo Q God Magi Felix has been testing it out on her as well. The theory on this is that Camille is capable of using almost any keystone well, and she doesn't actually crutch on a single keystone to make her trading patterns actually effective, meaning she is allowed to take Omnistone and sometimes make some huge plays with things like Aftershock or Predator without much punishment otherwise. I'm going to recommend you pick up Camille as a staple for your champion pool for almost any current or aspiring High-ELO top laners with or without this setup, but honestly, it's pretty fun, and I can say for certainty any jungler or mid laner who dies to a Predator roam is going to want to go next real quick. Now, by this point in time, you're likely saying to yourself, but Adam, Camille and Akali, though they're very strong and flashy, they require a lot of clicking. What if I want to win with minimal effort? What if I just want my teammates to do more damage just from me simply picking my champion? That way I can win, but you know, in a relaxing fashion? Well, in the past, I'd have recommended Karma or Lulu top, but nowadays in Season 10, we got Ornn. A champion that, unlike other tanks, is strong in the laning phase, but also, for some reason, he scales extremely well on his own, but has the insane Forge God Mastercraft passive, giving him one of the biggest 2-item spikes I think out of any tank in the game. Ornn's main strengths are his stable laning phase, his crazy damage on his 2-item power spike, his tankiness, and his engage potential with his ultimate, which is pretty much half the map. Ornn is just such a lovely champion that I think all top laners who end up on my team should pick up, because little known fact, the goat god that he is based off of in Norse mythology represents great wealth and good lookingness. Don't bother looking that up though, I majored in history, I know what I'm talking about, you can trust me. For the jungle, our S tier roster is gonna be Olaf, Elise, Shaco, Echo, Rek'Sai, Kha'Zix, Lee Sin, and Rengar. We had quite a few changes to the jungle this patch, and you'll likely notice that we have a lot of S tier junglers. It's at this point in time that I'd like to mention that not all roles are created equal, and not all roles have the same strength in S tier. It's all relative to the power of the role itself. This means that for the jungle, there's just a massive disparity between the junglers that are good enough to win games, and everything else just being trash due to the absurdly low XP the jungle currently provides. With that being said, we moved Kha'Zix and Rengar to S tier, Zac to A, Wizard Shyvana to B tier thanks to her buffs, Sejuani also to B tier thanks to her buffs, Warwick down to B tier, Fiddlesticks off the list, and Evelynn off the list as well. I will make a quick note about Evelynn. As an Eve main myself who has hit Challenger jungling her every single season, I can say without a doubt that she sucks right now, and it's mostly due to the lack of XP and the fast-paced early aggro junglers were just too much for her to handle. I'll agree that dealing with a fed Evelynn is frustrating, and the champion in general is just annoying to deal with, but that annoyance and frustration does not actually equate to her being a good champion. You know who is a good champion though? Kha'Zix. Now, I know many Kha'Zix mains and streamers have come into Season 10 telling you he sucks, and I too was fooled by this as I spent a lot of time watching streams on YouTube while sick in bed for the last week or so. Fast forward a bit to the tier list meeting last week, I was surprised when Flares just slid Kha'Zix into S tier, so I asked him why. Isn't Kha'Zix bad at the moment? He said, Adam, look at my screen. And so I did, and he showed me Kha'Zix's play rate plus win rate, and I quickly shut up and asked to move on to the next champion. For reference, he's got a 52.5% win rate in Diamond Plus with one of the highest play rates at 10%. This was likely caused by the buff to lethality items like Edge of Night or Dirt, giving him more options to snowball, but either way, Bugman's just strong right now. You're gonna want to pick up K6 if you like assassin junglers with amazing burst potential, outplay potential, adaptability. He can even be played as a bruiser, so he's got a lot of options. Another champion who has an alternative playstyle that I want to bring up is the new blob on the A tier block, and that's Zac. This setup is something that is just picking up now over in Korea, and it's actually Conqueror Zac. You're gonna want to go a normal persistent tree with something like Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand with Resolve Secondary for Revitalize and Font of Life. This setup gives you so many useful tools that a tank wants like Triumph or Tenacity while also giving you carry potential with damage. You're gonna end up healing an absurd amount from Conqueror plus your blobs too, since you naturally built a Spirit Visage while still being a massive damage threat to the enemy backline. If you want to pick up a tank jungler, I highly recommend you pick up Zac. He's one of the tank junglers that has the easiest time ganking and can really carry games with the Conqueror setup by killing the enemy backline on his own. Last up, it can't be the first High-ELO tier list of the season without the Blind Monk Lee Sin featured. One of the most popular champions of League of Legends, period, but at least in Season 10, his 30% play rate is actually warranted. Lee Sin's early game is just absurdly strong, and he's able to pretty much do it all. He can out-duel you, out-gank you, or even out-farm you. He can take the lead and just grab easy neutral objectives, snowball the game, and end it quickly. Not to mention, in Season 10, getting the first Herald or Dragon roughly gives you a 65% chance to win the game, and when you combine that with the fact that in High-ELO, the average game time is only 26 minutes, it's no wonder he's doing so well in a quick jungle meta. Honestly, if you're capable of playing him at all, he should be your go-to jungler for this season. And let's face it, even if you can't do fancy engages like the pros, as long as you can ward hop into RQ or even just walk up slowly and RQ, then you're still doing okay, because with games being so short, you might not get exposed for your lack of mechanics in teamfights. For the mid lane, our S tier starting roster are going to be Diana, Rumble, Talon, Katarina, Aurelion Sol, Kiki, and Akali. We added both Akali and Diana S tier as they are both overperforming and frequent bans in High-ELO solo queue. Teams like assassins with consistent damage who use Conqueror might be a little bit too strong at the moment, but who knows. We also added Pyke mid as a bit of a niche pick that is doing pretty decently, so we added him to B tier. Kasa Adin moved down from S tier to A tier as his win rate plummeted from 53% to 50% after they nerfed him and took away 5 whole MS. It was just way too much for him to handle. But you know, realistically, it's mostly due to the fact that the meta is far too quick for him to scale at the moment, and people are simply blind picking him and getting counter picked because they think he's so overpowered that they can do that, which obviously they can't. And lastly, we got Mordekaiser to B tier post nerfs, Orianna to B tier from A tier as she struggles to keep up with a roam heavy meta, and Nocturne plus Heimerdinger off the list. Ever since her mini rework, Diana has been destroying solo queue with a lot of different item setups, including one with Ardent Sensor, which no longer works, so please stop building it. She currently boasts a 53.5% win rate and a 9% play rate, making her one of the strongest mid laners coming into Season 10 across all brackets of play. With so many people playing her, and she's fairly new, a lot of people are building different things on her, but after sifting through the data for you, I found that the Roa plus Nashers into Zhonya's or Deathcap build to be the best performing one on the most consistent basis as long as you're taking Conqueror. The plus side to picking up Diana is that she's incredibly hard to outplay once her Q lands, and let's be honest with ourselves, that thing is almost impossible to miss. It's a straight up laser beam. Then once it does land, the opponent is pretty much doomed because she's either going to burst you down, or she's got more consistent damage than you, or she's probably tankier than you too. I highly recommend that any mid laner should pick up Diana for some LP before she gets nerfed, as, you know, she also doesn't take that long to learn anyway, so it's fine. The mid meta right now is all about shove into roam tactics, and Kiki is one of those champions similar to Talon that just excels at this. Just look at every single S tier mid laner right now, and they all have the same thing in common. They barely lane, and they just spam roam to impact the early game as much as possible. Kiki in particular though, due to her W passive and mobility, is able to roam potentially even more effectively than Talon, as not only is she faster than him in the river, but she brings targeted CC to the table. I still remember how uncontrollably upset I was at the first couple of times I played versus Kiki, and I tried to dodge her Q only to find out that if she uses it mid-E, it can't be missed. It's a kill combo that somehow was made really easy. Anyway, the other important distinguishing factor Kiki has over every other AD assassin, and what her strong point is right now, is that her ultimate is able to 1v9 teamfights at Dragon, which are really common at the moment. I'd pick up Qiyana if you really like a roam heavy playstyle and you don't want to really work too hard for it. That means the last mid laner I'm going to highlight is Snake Lady Cassiopeia, because she is the rank 1 A tier champion and most likely the only non-push and roam champion to be able to potentially make it S tier anytime soon. The reason why Cassio is so powerful is that her lane kingdom status is now so big that it's got its own gravitational pull towards mid lane. Once Cassio's got a big enough mana pool, she's able to dominate the laning phase 1v1, 1v2, 1v3 thanks to her absurd DPS and kiting ability. When you combine this all with her teamfight presence and ability to zone mobile melee champions with her miasma in the later stages of the game, you have yourself a monster control mage. She currently sits at around a 55% win rate in Diamond Plus, but the sample size is not that big enough yet, so we're still waiting till next patch to see if she can sustain those numbers. But either way, if you're a control mage player, Cassiopeia is the only champion you should look to pick up in Season 10. For the bot lane, starting with ADCs, our starting S tier roster are going to be Miss Fortune, Caitlyn, Senna, Cassiopeia, Lucian, and Aphelios. Lucian and Senna moved to S tier along with Aphelios moving back up, as the nerfs weren't anywhere close enough to bring him in line. Kalista, for the first time in I think forever, is moving to A tier after receiving multiple buffs in a row. Ashe and Jhin moved down from S tier not because they're doing worse, but just because other marksmen are doing way better now, and they were at the bottom of S tier in High-ELO to begin with. Senna was one of the strongest ADC champions upon her release and was fairly quickly nerfed for it, but thanks to a new setup involving Glacial Augment, she is back at the top of the food chain once again. For your runes, you're going to want to go Glacial Augment, Free Boots, Biscuits, and then Approach Velocity to allow you to kite and hit your E a lot easier. For your secondary, you can take Precision for Bloodline and Presence of Mind as the most common choices, although some people take Sorcery. For her build, you're going to want to go Mana Mune with Pickaxe B4 tier, please and thank you, followed up by some lethality items like Edge of Night, Dustblade, or Ghostblade, and then you can finish it off with Rapid Fire Cannon or an Infinity Edge. What's great about this setup is the slow plus her absurdly long auto attack range allows her to easily set up picks for her or her team to follow up on. Plus, she is a champion with the utility of a support but the damage of an actual carry like Jhin, so she's got the best of both worlds. Next up, let's talk about Lucian, Senna's ex-husband, because I'm pretty sure when she died, the marriage is then void, and I wasn't invited to the wedding this time around, so I'm pretty sure it didn't happen. He is not only an incredibly popular champion, but he is frequently receiving bans over in the LPL. The reason for this is his lane dominant style is far too effective in this high snowball oriented meta, making his normal weakness of a subpar late game almost non-existent. He's also one of the few marksmen who can kite out and self-peel versus the heavy amount of diving melee champions that are common at the moment, making him not only an aggressive option, but also likely the safest option in the meta. Since, you know, Ezreal's kind of MIA at the moment, thank God, it's not so much that Lucian has any new tech or playstyle that's making him overpowered at the moment, it's mostly that he's always been good in these highly chaotic environments, and it just so happens that that's the meta right now, so it suits him. So you're going to want to pick up Lucian if you want to play a lane kingdom style, but actually be able to do something if your support is first time Pyke playing on an off role. I know we've all been there. Last up, I know this is the High-ELO list, but I can't in good conscience not put a spotlight on arguably the most highly contested marksman in competitive play, who also happens to be godly in solo queue, and that's Miss Fortune. By my count, it's been over 5 years since Curse of the Sad Bullet Time was plaguing both solo queue and competitive play, but Miss Fortune is now back and is the single best marksman champion in Season 10 so far. Her combination of lane dominance with multiple Doran's Blades and a very powerful teamfight presence with her ultimate and crit build allows her to be strong enough to impact all stages of the game. Unfortunately, Miss Fortune has always been considered the go-to noob AD carry, and she's carried that stigma, pretty much rightfully so, for a long time now. But you know she's broken when in competitive play, people are forced to pick or ban her, and then even put their world-class junglers on J4 duty just to set up her ultimate. If you can put your pride away for an average of around 26 minutes after locking in Miss Fortune, you'll be rewarded with a win. Or you could actually just still pick Ezreal and lose. It's really your choice at this point. For the other half of our bot lane, our supports, our S tier roster is going to be Nautilus, Leona, Nami, and Thresh. We moved Janna and Bard down to A tier as they were being outclassed by the Elite Four supports, but Bard is still very high up on the A tier ladder. Mage supports in general too took a big hit after the item nerf, so Zyra went down from A tier to B tier, and Karma, Sona, Brand, and Xerath got shot around, with Senna and Braum moving to A tier. To start off though, let's talk about Braum, who ever since the buffs to his ultimate and takiness has been rising in popularity in both solo queue and competitive play. One of the main reasons he's growing in popularity is because he interacts extremely well with the other meta champions. He has a nice counter engage to stop Leona and Nautilus spammers, and his E can be used to block game-changing ultimates like Misfortune or Lucian's. The other important thing about Braum is his synergy with top-tier ADCs like Lucian, Misfortune, or Aphelios, who can all proc his passive extremely quickly. Especially Aphelios with his Q pistol pretty much procs Braum passive instantly, just in case that champion needed a little bit more help to win games, cause he needs it. I'm gonna recommend you invest some time into Braum because he is a great situational pick for your champion pool who will almost never be picked or banned away from you, so you can learn Braum if you're looking for a melee peeling support. Right now, every support player pretty much just handshake bans Morgana, then they pick either Leona or Nautilus, then they see who can out-roam, out-engage, or out-solo the enemy AD carry the fastest. It's a true display of talent and skill if I've gotta say so myself. But stat-wise, both in solo queue and competitive play, when put head-to-head, Leona wins around 55% of the time against Nautilus, making her the better choice to main at the moment if you're looking to climb this season. I mean, ideally you should play both, but when given the choice between Nautilus or Leona, the data says Leona is the better choice due to her more frequent stun during skirmishes as well as her better engage if you can actually land her ultimate. The easiest and most effective playstyle to win in solo queue on support and high elo has always been to roam as often as possible to mid lane or to jungle fights, and no other support does this better than Leona at the moment with how much reliable CC she brings to the table, so pick her up. I'd also like to point out a bit of a sleeper pick in the meta at the moment, and that's Taric, who sits pretty at a 54% win rate and a 2.5% play rate. Taric does well for similar reasons as to Braum, as Taric is able to provide valuable peel and disengage versus the high tempo, high engage bot lane meta. Not only that, but he's got some insane lane combos with champions like Lucian. You do Taric E into Lucian dash trade combo, and it's got almost no counterplay and is one of the greatest fears that I have that this combo becomes popular. Taric can be considered a counterpick to the current way the game is played, as people just dogpile engage on a random target, but thanks to Taric's stun into ultimate, he can easily delay this tactic, and then sustain everyone up with his Q and auto spam since he's got so many targets to reset his heal off of. Pick up Taric if you want to pick up LP in the most fabulous way possible, while also playing a seemingly underpowered pick, although we all know he's a little bit strong right now. Thanks for watching our high-low tier list for patch 10.1. Feel free to leave us any comments or questions and we'll take a look for the update video. We also have a pick of the patch video, so stay tuned for that, and make sure to check out the Mobalytics link in the description to become a better player and climb higher for Season 10.